This is Secret Stories, and my name is Mary Cachapalya. Many people cannot be on camera because their employer, their family, their friends, their church or synagogue would roll their eyes, ridicule, misunderstand, or even fire them. Secret Stories allow you to tell your story with anonymity. Here I read experiencers' accounts emailed to us at Breaking the Silence. This is John's dream experience. I have never seen a UFO or UAP in real life, yet I've been fascinated by the subject since seeing the original film, The Day the Earth Stood Still, as a kid on TV. As an adolescent, I read many of the classic UFO books, including the Betty and Barney Hill, George Adamski, Bud Hopkins, and Whitley Strieber books. Despite not ever seeing a physical UFO, I do have occasional UFO dreams, the majority of which are set at the house in Puerto Rico that I spent my adolescent years in. I lived in an area called Rio Piedras in a lovely suburb. Our house had a large backyard with breadfruit, banana, and avocado trees. This was the setting my dreams usually took place in. Those dreams, I would be out in the yard. It would usually be early dusk or night, and I would see lights or a strange-looking object in the sky, sometimes several. An uneasy feeling would come over me as I sensed that the object knew I was there and was coming for me. Sometimes I'd try to hide. Sometimes I'd wake up, or the dream would suddenly shift to another scenario, as dreams often do. The one dream experience I'd like to recount occurred when I was living in Brooklyn, New York, in the 1980s, when I was in my 30s. It seemed much more than a dream, more like a lucid, super vivid, altered state or out-of-body experience, and I remember it as clearly as if I experienced it yesterday. As per usual, the dream setting was at my parents' house and started out with my walking down the hall from the bedroom area toward the living room. I encountered my mother in the hallway, and somehow, aware that I was in an out-of-body state, I asked her if she could see me. She said that she could, and aside from that, I was scheduled to visit my parents the following week, and when I got there, I asked if she had dreamed about me the week before. She said she had. My mother was an avid sci-fi fantasy reader. However, she never believed in UFOs, let alone abduction stories. Okay, from the hall, I proceeded to the kitchen, where my dad was. He was aware of me too, but pretended he wasn't. I simply continued past him into the carport. Outside it was night, and the sky was ablaze with stars. Being in the altered state I was in, I perceived them as sparkling, multicolored jewels, undulating in wave-like patterns as if energy waves were passing over them. I proceeded beyond the carport and the house until I was in the backyard itself. The property was sectioned off on either side with a chain-link fence on 3 sides, and neighbors' houses were on either side. In the middle of the yard, I turned back toward my house facing the rear of it. At that point, 2 black, rectangular, boxcar-like objects, trimmed along their edges with the multicolored lights, descended from the sky and landed in the neighbors' yards, one in each yard, bouncing slightly on spider-like landing gear as they came to rest. As I gazed at them, entranced, I got a telepathic message stating that the dreamlike altered state I was in was the only way I'd ever be able to see or experience them. I mentally replied back that that was fine with me as long as I knew they were real. I was assured they were, and I felt okay with that. At that point, I headed back toward the house, and as I reached the carport, suddenly the scene time shifted back to when my parents and I had first moved into it. In this scene, the housing project was new at that time, and all the houses, which were concrete prefab, had been recently built on bare lots before there were any grass, lawns, or landscaping. When we moved in, the yard was still mostly clay. This was important since, as I walked back to the carport, I spotted a small circular disc-shaped saucer resting in the clay to the left of the carport. There was an open hatch in the side, and just outside of it were a group of small creatures, 3 to 4 feet tall, in jumpsuits, busily digging in the clay with small shovels. They were hairless, had large heads, and their skin was not the typical gray color, but more ruddy and tan. Their eyes, although large and almond-shaped, didn't seem to be solid black, although they could have been. One of the entities caught me staring at them, and I got the sense that it was not pleased that they'd been discovered. While this was happening, I found myself hiding behind a concrete partition of our newly built house and peeking around it. I was pressed up against this wall and could suddenly feel the rough, hard surface of the concrete under my cheek and hands. The realization dawned on me that, oh my God, this is real. I'm here. It's really happening, or did happen. At that point, I began to regain consciousness, but very slowly, becoming aware of my physical self in stages, limb by limb. I lay in bed for quite a while afterwards, filled with awe and wonder at what I just experienced. As I stated earlier, I recall it as clearly as if it happened yesterday. Lucid dream, close encounter, altered state, out-of-body experience, imagination, fantasy, who knows? I first read Communion sometime after this experience and wrote to Whitley about it. His reply, which I still have along with the first edition hardback of the book, was, "Dear John, it certainly seems as if you had had a visitor experience that has emerged long after the fact in dreams." John also asked, should my account be deemed appropriate for breaking the silence? I am wondering if it's safe to use my real name. Has anyone that you know of up to this point had any negative repercussions? Thank you for the opportunity to share. Namaste, John. Thank you, John, for sharing this with us. And thank you for sharing your accounts with us. It takes guts to share your account, and when you feel ready, I will share your story for you. This is Mary Kachapalya. May love and light be with you.